Christian parenting. So, you're having a baby. Today on So You're Having a Baby, we continue our conversation with Jenn Crider and Bethany Cranfield on becoming a mother, how that affected you, becoming a working mom, what self-care looks like, how your marriage has changed as of an effect of having a baby, and just give some general encouragement for new moms. I'm really excited for you to get to finish out this conversation I had with them. I felt like it was so impactful, so meaningful. Let's dive right in. What I hear you guys saying is like, and this is something I really had to learn, was like, it's individual. All of it is. I remember thinking with Wes, I stayed home until he went to Mother's Day out at like 18 months, I think. And I remember thinking like that I was doing everything right. Like I was doing the right thing that you're supposed to do. And it's funny because just like Jenn, you alluded to, like when you're married, you come in with different point of view. Craig's mom stayed home their whole life. And she did ministry in the church. You know, Craig's dad was a pastor and she was busy as can be, but she was a stay-at-home mom. And then my mom always worked full time. And it was funny bringing our two perspectives together because I think that we both wanted me to stay home. And then after Wells came into the picture, baby two, it was like game over. There's no way. There's no way I can do it. And I think that that's an important thing to realize if you are trying to make this decision, if you are weighing your options, it may not even be an option for you. And God bless you and you're going to flourish and may God prosper you and your family. Like not everyone has the luxury of deciding even. And then, I felt like honestly, it was best for me to work. And that was I dealt with so much mom guilt over that. I remember thinking, why can I not hold this together? Why can I not? My life revolved around whether or not my 4-month-old was taking a nap. And it was killing me in a way that it didn't with Wes. And I remember talking to one of my great friends, Courtney, who's a therapist. And I was just telling her, I'm really struggling with this decision of knowing what is best for our family, what is best for me. I feel like, because in my mind, I held this belief that it was best for me to stay home. And after that season is when that radically shifted. And I realized it has nothing to do with me being a stay-at-home mom. What is best for our family in a lot of ways is what's best for you and your husband, because your kids are going to thrive when you're thriving. And if you are drowning, which I was, it was no longer good for anybody. It wasn't good for Craig. It wasn't good for me. It wasn't good for the boys. And I remember making that decision. And Courtney sent me this podcast and it was kind of like clickbait. The title was like, how much childcare is the right amount? Because I remember thinking, oh, are they in childcare too much now? All the things. I'm a worrier in general, which I don't love, and I'm not bragging about it. I just was really stressing over this idea of, was this suddenly too much childcare, especially for Wesley, who had predominantly been home with me. And it was so funny. I go to listen to it thinking this is going to answer all my questions. And she basically right out the gate says the right amount of childcare is the right amount of childcare for you. Whatever's right for you is the right amount. And I was just like, oh yeah, okay. That's how this is going to go then. I guess this is what this is going to look like. And so I think that's an important thing for moms listening. Like it may be best for you. I had one friend who was like, I could not work. I thought I would go back to work. And she was a nurse. And she was like, and I was drowning. And it was just too much and I couldn't do it. And so like, I want to transition to talking into self-care because I think more than I would have ever expected, work is self-care for me. Getting to work and use my gifts and be creative is such a form of self-care, just to get some time away, to get time alone. Oh my goodness. It's just such a gift to give myself. And I know like the flip side of that deciding to stay at home with your kids can be a form of self-care, like it was for my other friend, like who was just like, it's just too much. I can't juggle all these things. Like obviously everybody knows that self-care is a huge part of parenting and thriving and flourishing, as Bethany's been saying, like as a new mom, how important it is to learn to incorporate self-care into your routine and into your lifestyle. It's not just like a, popular word. It's like very real concept that's very important and godly, and we talked in season 1, we have a whole episode around it and how important it is not to lose touch with what is going on inside of you and your needs and true rest. And so I would just love for you guys to share about, what self-care looks like for you now, but even maybe even what it looked like for you back then when you first had a baby. I'm betting it looks pretty different with a newborn versus with a 4-year-old. And so I would just love to, Jenn, if you could share how you've seen self-care play out in your own life as a mom and like how you've learned to prioritize it.
Yeah, self-care is an interesting topic that it is important. And also, like you said, there's a godly principle to it. And then also sometimes, as with everything, there's a temptation to compare, like in the social media highlight reel of like self-care of somebody taking a super long bath and you're like, oh, I have spit up all over me and I don't remember the last time I showered and I smell and,
Yeah.
like what, I can't do that. Again, even self-care, I think is somewhat about fullness of a season. And I think one thing motherhood does teach you is to take your moments and not necessarily take them for granted. I saw a meme yesterday, which was so silly, but also kind of illustrates this point of, it said, I love having my alone time. And that glorious few seconds after I get my kids in the car and walk around to the driver's side, that's my just glorious moments of alone time, which is a joke. And also there is an element, I think, especially having a second kid, I've learned to take the moments as they come and take them as manna, like that's enough to get me to the next moment. And that it's not going to be necessarily enough to get me through the week. That it's for me is sometimes really small stolen moments. And so I don't think I understood that. I think I had high expectations with my first that I needed a lot of alone time and because I'm an introvert and a lot of different things in large quantities that I focused so much on that I never did much to get even the little moments. So I think with my second, I was really specific of in the really thick of newborn life, of showering every day was a really important thing for me, which seems so silly. And that was kind of the extent of showering and making sure that I ate and trying to get up and move around. But that didn't look like working out before kids. That was a different, that might be even a few minutes. They were kind of small markers. Also, I think for my mental self-care, it's hard when it's your first time around, but knowing that things really are just a season, especially when kids are young and in that first year where things change so fast. My mental self-care was some of counting down the days until they turned 6 weeks when I knew that my recovery would be a little bit better. Counting down the days until they turned 12 weeks because they shift so much in those first 3 months and then 6 months. And that might sound like you're wishing the time away. For me, that was a huge part of my mental self-care, was just recognizing that things are only a season and that they will certain things will get better. My sister would always say, with each new season and new mile marker in motherhood, something gets easier and something else gets harder. But typically, you're at least getting a little more sleep to deal with the harder things. And you have more tools in your tool belt. So though there is something that gets harder, it's not as intense as that beginning. So for any new parents listening, something that maybe we don't talk enough about is that people just say, cherish the moments. And I wanted to punch every person who said that to me when I was a first-time mom with a hard baby. And I wanted to say, please hold my screaming baby for a few hours and tell me to cherish this. And, that's kind of extreme. But
it's true,
for me, I needed to be reminded that for my mental self-care was to just remember that things really are a season and they will get better, and lean on the community of moms who will remind you that. And, you will get more sleep. Different things about that intensity of that first year, that they are a season. So that might seem like a weird thing about self-care, but that was thinking about those mile markers where typically things do change was huge for me. And working for me is self-care, and exercise and eating well. Those are so silly, because they're basic, but there's a reason they're basic. And That's the intentionality the second time around on eating, sleeping, moving my body. That doesn't look like when I was training for a marathon before kids. It looks very different, but those basic tenets, and being intentional about planning those, the intentionality the second time around has been a huge piece of self-care for me as well.
That's great. I'll just tag on to what you're saying right at the end. I think for me, it is focusing on the basics. And I was reflecting while you were talking, Jenn, about each postpartum season with each of my 3 kids. And my needs looked so different in each postpartum season. And it's interesting now to have the data to reflect back and compare, because there's been 3 and 4 pregnancies, but 3 back to back. And I should have probably done better. And I think this is actually a good instigator for me to just do more reflecting, I think, on the whole picture. The questions even that we're addressing today was just a good exercise, even last night as I was preparing for this conversation. But my needs looked so different in each postpartum season, and most closely to birth, I think. And I'm going to focus my answer really on like the first 8 to 12 weeks after each delivery. I really relied on, in my first pregnancy or first delivery, right after, in that time, I relied on the help of a lot of professionals, like my chiropractor. Going once a week to the chiropractor was like, if I can just make it to the chiropractor, like, I'm fine. Like I would have these certain little, if I can just, do this. And because it was like a moment of, okay, all is well. I felt like aligned truly, in a lot of different ways. And so in my first pregnancy, I think the chiropractor was like just something I remember as my kind of thing, and then the second pregnancy, I did hire a trainer actually after like about, 6 to 8 weeks, whenever it was fine for me to work out, but just to help me like regroup and connect to my core again. And I didn't do it for very long. Maybe it was, 3 or 4 months, but that was something that was like the one thing that stands out to me as I reflect back. And then this time it was a counselor and just those weekly sessions. So I'm an expensive person. If I had all of my professionals and my team of people that I wanted, it would be a very expensive endeavor. So all that to say, those are the things though that I chose to invest in, because I wanted to speak to that too with money, because a lot of times, finances are a thing to discuss in the middle of this season, because I don't think that's actually discussed enough, because sometimes you come home with a big hospital bill if you had a baby at the hospital, and things are so expensive to stock up your home. Like I remember with our first child, people would honestly almost like accidentally shame me and be like, well, you don't have this and this and this, and like, you need all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, I can't afford that right now, or whatever, And so I say that related to self-care, because my first thing when I think self-care, I think of my list of professionals that I want to go see once a week, my chiropractor, my nails and my counselor and my massage therapist, all these things. So I would prioritize in that season, what did I need? And I would invest sometimes in that. But to Jenn's point, I really see the most consistent throughout the last 4 years of my times of pregnancy and raising kids has been focusing on the basics. So I have a huge tank of water right here that I'm looking at, and I drink tons of water, and I just force myself to keep it full up, my little cup just full all day. And then protein, and obviously sleep is a thing. I get as much as I can, and sometimes I sleep in longer than I should and I'm running late, but I prioritize my sleep. But it is just those basics, protein and water every day. Those are what I think I need that. And then we actually just got a Peloton, which was like an investment into my own self-care, my health after the 3rd delivery. I really, needed something that's realistic for us in the winter in New York to have, as I can just put my kids down and then hop on the Peloton. Like that's what my goal is every day, is drink water, eat protein. And if I can do bedtime, then I can get on the Peloton and have a little party with myself. So it just, again, my first inclination is to go to my list of all the money I need to spend to do self-care.
Right.
But then when I land the plane in my head, it's really just the basics and putting yourself on the list of priorities. So I can take care of my kids all day, but making sure that I am equally as important. Like I have to be fed too, or I can't even feed them, so I'm constantly telling myself like to put myself on the totem pole of the priorities and of the list. And, their needs are more demanding, but mine, like, you're the one who has to parent yourself and tell, yourself to give you what you need. And so keeping it simple, keeping it achievable, and then keeping things around you that you can quickly grab, if it's a protein bar, whatever, that brings me a lot of energy and joy and sustainability to have the energy throughout the day because you need it.
Yeah, that's so good. I love too that it just simplifies it, that y'all just broke it down. It's like, because I remember the life that it gave me to get a hot shower with a newborn, but why was it so hard to actually step in that shower? It was way too hard. It was so hard. I'm like, that's the last thing I want to do right now. And then you get in there and you're like, oh, I live in here now. I'm not coming out.
Yes.
My mom, there's 8 kids in our family. And so she, especially postpartum, each time she stayed with us for a little bit and she's the master at like taking the moment. And she can also like get ready faster than anybody I've ever seen. It's unbelievable. But she would always just say, this is your moment. You're going to miss it if you don't take it right now. If you don't take a shower right now, it's going to be hard to do it. Not in a fear way, but in a recognizing you have to take the moment and not necessarily wait for like there's no perfect time anymore for a lot of different things. Like, and that's okay. Cause this is a season of young kids and the intensity of that. But, taking the moments for a shower, things like that. Cause you think that you don't have time and it's hard, but also to prioritize that, and take the moments when they come and just run with that.
Absolutely. And letting go, like you said, of the perfectionism of the moment has to be perfect. So I found myself, especially after my first, before I got married, I took amazing care of myself. I'll just say it was my hobby. Self-care, nutrition, all of it is my favorite thing ever. Like it is. I enjoy working out. I enjoy healthy food. It's my favorite topic to talk about, go grocery shopping, whatever. So I had high standards and I came in, after even marriage, like there's, you have someone else now to care for. And like, it's just, that's a whole thing in itself. But then moving quickly into having a baby, the perfectionism side of me was constantly frustrated that the moment wasn't coming in the way it should, or it didn't all line up. Like I didn't have an uninterrupted hour to go to the gym in our apartment to work out, And so rather than wait for that perfect moment to come, I would just not do it or whatever. And so embracing those little tiny moments and making the most of them. And then of course, asking for what you need and articulating that to the people around you.
So good. That's a good natural transition into talking about marriage. Asking the people closest to you for what you need. I know that has always been my biggest struggle in our marriage, and me and Craig share about that a lot in the workbook and in season 1. That was my biggest hurdle, was being suddenly extremely needy and not being able to do everything by myself. And so let's talk about marriage. I know that there's about a million things we could say about this topic. We could probably do an entire podcast episode about how having kids has affected our marriage. But yeah, maybe if each of you could just share a little bit about your perspective on marriage, how it has changed and shifted with having children. Me and Bethany, we Marco Polo every day right now and talk about all the things. And this is always a hot topic for us. Maybe how you're finding balance in your marriage right now with each of your needs. Because, anybody that knows my husband would know he's a man of many hobbies and loves to get alone time. He's very introverted, and I'm obviously very needy. I love the spa. I love time with my friends. And so learning the delicate balance of each getting what you feel like you need, and how to care for your marriage, cultivate connection in the chaos that is having children, how to do that well, anything that's even been helpful to you. Little moments, like you said, taking the moments, even in your marriage, what that's looked like for you guys. And and would love to hear about learning how to ask for help regularly and in abundance. So, Bethany, if you want to start us off and share a bit about that.
Sure. I'll try to speak to all of those. What came to my mind while you were talking was on Saturday, we had a babysitter come and we just left for 5 hours and did nothing big. We just walked around the city and got, a little sandwich, and I had to get some clothes for an upcoming thing, and then stopped at Whole Foods and came home. And we felt like we had been to Cabo and back. And
It's real.
what my observation is it's funny how the second we step outside of our door, we're having fun with each other.
Yeah.
And we're like free and laughing. And we also live in New York City. So sometimes I step out of the door and I'm like, oh, wait, I live here. You know what I mean? Like, because I'm normally in work mode, get the kids to school, whatever. But then when we switch hats and we get to just go explore, it's funny because, we get to actually take advantage of what's around us, which we don't on the daily necessarily. But it was an interesting moment for me to just reflect on that relationship that you had when you were dating and those early times is still all there. You just have to sometimes dig it out from under all the things that are surrounding and that are on top. And so for us, I think I'm always, reminded of the importance of just the same thing we were just talking about with self-care. So self-care for your marriage care would be those moments and carving out that time where there are no interruptions. That's the gold, of course. Now that doesn't happen all the time, but it's just important for the health of our marriage. And I think in general, to have those times where you are just free of responsibilities to just be two humans in love, having fun. Yeah. So that's to me, if we can just do that more often and, put that on the priority list consistently. Yeah. That's what we're constantly working through. Now, this year has been hell, honestly, in so many ways that for so many people, marriages and kids and pandemic, on top of all of that, we also threw a move in the middle of a pandemic, which added new layers of complexity with we didn't have babysitters and all of those types of things. So our marriage, it's been a hard year, but Jordan's actually so good at recognizing and saying, pause, really stop. We need to go on a vacation. You need to set all of your responsibilities aside, looking at me, because I'm so highly responsible that I'll be holding on so tightly to all of the things that have my name next to the assignment list, whether it's for work or whether it's for home. I get in this space and I'm just, keeping it all going. And he's actually so good at just saying, you need to go away. And I'm actually, usually I kick against it sometimes because I'm no, I have this and this and this, but the reality is those things will always be there. And your marriage is so delicate. And I think it's just important to remember how to nurture that. And what happens when you do nurture it is it makes all the other things so much easier, and you're not butting heads about who's getting a bottle or, whatever that, it's just, it does put you both. And this year, of course, I've always said it put us both at just our very worst, and I think that there's an element of that same mini pandemic feeling that you can have, right after in those early days after having a baby. And it feels everything feels extreme. And as a mom, everything felt so intense to me. And, and to him, if he's losing sleep, and so it brings out this side of each other that can be just not a representation of who you truly are. So when all the responsibilities are removed and it's just the two of you walking through New York City, eating a sandwich and shopping, those people are there. But sometimes in those moments of parenting, those hard moments, it's not a good representation of just who you guys are. So I think for us, it's been making those times, even if it is 2 hours to drive down the street and just go be by yourselves, it resets us in a way that fills our tank enough for the manna for that day to move on to the next day. And so in summary would be prioritizing those moments and believing the best in the person, that in the hard moments, actually that person you're talking to is the person that you love being with, that you love,
Yeah.
in theory, I'm assuming that there are some healthy, at the core marriage dynamics, but parenting reveals so many hard places in your heart that nothing else reveals. And it brings out family dynamics that are a topic we didn't even discuss. My friend just had a baby last week and she texted me. We actually hadn't even communicated. I had been on a group that was just in Houston, and she had texted me and said, when did titles for grandparents become a thing? That was all she said. She didn't send me the picture of the baby. She just went straight to it. And because meaning there were like family dynamics that had been revealed in the early hours after her birth. And so that's something else that with parenting, I think is something to discuss relating to marriage, is how we relate then to our extended families.
Oh, yeah.
And making sure we're staying on the team side of things and not turning against each other. So yeah, I think just the unity piece and the time, whether it's, 10 minutes to actually leave the house, but then at home, like even just finding those times to be together and connect is hard, but it's worth fighting for. And then just believing the best in the person.
What about you, Jenn?
Yeah, I mean, to be super honest, I am not great at finding those bigger moments. And my husband is definitely better at that than I am. And I'm continually trying to learn the first time he says, hey, we should have some time together, to listen rather than just push back with all the responsibilities. Cause I'm typically I'm the planner, and kind of, not that he's not responsible, but I just wear the mental load, I think, of family dynamics and planning and all of that way more. And I am kind of typically the one who handles the money. So I'm tend to be a little more stingy with that. And so, I can sometimes struggle to prioritize a date night because of money, but he understands the relational aspect. So I am continually trying to pay attention the first time he says that, because he's way better. Like, he's the relational one of our dynamic, of our, relationship. And he, our friends joke that they know if they want to get us together for something, they need to talk to Scott, not me, because I'll sometimes forget that I have a text, or he's just so much better at being proactively relational, which is true about our marriage. And so that's helpful on a really practical side. One thing that we kind of fell into early in our marriage that I am just a big proponent of is we have zones in our house and in our parenting style, that certain things that are our responsibilities, and we just call them zones, that we can't get mad at if somebody says, oh, the laundry needs to be done. That's my zone. He doesn't touch the laundry. He doesn't really like doing laundry. I don't mind. I do all of our laundry. He tends to do a lot more of the cooking, but doesn't love the kid meal prep and lunch piece. So I do all the kids' lunches, which is a pain for daycare. I do all the kids' lunches, all the kids' meal prep. My daughter has a ton of allergies, so it's a thing to have to think about and do every week. But I do all of that, but he does all of our family cooking. Yeah. For the most part, he does breakfast in the morning. I make the lunches. Silly things like I hate cleaning the bathrooms. He always cleans the bathrooms, but he hates poopy diapers. So if Eliza needs to be changed, he just says, Eliza needs to be changed. I don't get offended that he's not pulling his weight, because that's my zone. So there's different, I'm trying to think of a couple other examples. I do all budget and all bills and all taxes and anything that comes in, or if something's forgotten, that's on me. And I'm not offended when he brings it up, because it is on me, and I can't think he's not pulling his weight because he does all of the house stuff and all of the yard, so it's not an equal, there's not a balance ledger, because that doesn't work that way. And of course, postpartum, he does more, than I do, or with breastfeeding and all of that. But that's been a really helpful thing to, I think, help us not get into some of the little fights that are so easy. Not that we don't maybe, get frustrated with the other, but we tend to just in the household management, which is a real thing when you're both working, because you have such little time to, and we don't have the money to pay somebody to clean our house. We don't have the money to pay somebody to mow our yard. We don't have the money to eat out all the time. Like we are very tightly budgeted. We don't have some of those luxuries. And so we have to really be intentional with responsibilities to make everything work. And so not having underlying resentment that we're each not pulling our weight, I think really helps on a super practical level, especially with working parents, but really with everybody in marriage. And so that's been something that I think helps our day to day and helps us also feel like a team, which is important. But in the same breath, I can sometimes lean so far into just the managing, like, of being a parent and a working parent. It feels like your third title is manager of everything, that he's really much better at understanding the relational piece that on paper doesn't always seem to add up to me, but I know is so necessary and important. So I think we learn to lean on each other's strengths, and we're learning to lean on that even more and in different ways, in this season. And we both know that things are just seasons. Like for us getting through the first year with a new baby, that neither of us are, it's not that we don't like it. It's just that's a little bit harder for us. Like we know that that's just getting through the first year and getting through some of that. And then a lot of other stuff that makes it so intense in that first year, that's not forever. That's just small season. So, that also helps us, that we say to each other, and then you just have to laugh. Like you have to laugh at the chaos and the frustration and the tantrums and even the times when you get frustrated at the other, and the fact that we don't get to sit down at night until 9 p.m. like after making dinner and cleaning up and putting kids to bed and cleaning up lunches and all of that. It's 9 p.m. and then we need to kind of be in bed by 10. And so we also have to just learn to like laugh at the chaos of the season we're in and trust that it's enough, for what it is.
And recognize there's no one else you'd be rather doing that with. Like,
totally. And being a team, and especially in parenting, and a lot of us have maybe alluded that we're a little controlling at times. At my baby shower with my first one, mom who I really respect, she just said, remember that dads help in a different way, even the best dads ever, but different help is better than no help. So don't get to a place where you're controlling the way that they parent in every aspect to when they don't want to help at all. And you need to let them help as God created them to help, which is different. And it's also needed. And sometimes that can feel lonely as a mom when it feels like they get to play and you're carrying the mental load. But remembering that there's a gift in that, and that your kids are actually benefiting from both sides. And so sometimes he and I do have to talk about that, where I feel like I don't ever get to play because I'm like doing this, and he can, respond in a helpful way. But that's been something that's still an important thing, that different help is better than no help in most scenarios, especially in a healthy marriage.
I love that idea of playing into your strengths individually in marriage as parents. Just little examples, like I don't mind washing the dishes and putting them in the dishwasher, but I hate unloading the dishwasher. I don't know why, but I hate it. And to be honest, like even Jen, to your point about, I feel like I'm always the one who's having to run the ship basically, and he gets to play. I'm like, when it comes down to it, I don't really want to play. Like, I know that sounds horrible, but like, Wes is like, Mommy, please, Mommy, can you please sit on the floor? I'm like, it hurts my hips to sit on the floor. I gotta, it's just funny, like how everything just falls into place in marriage, and just.
And you don't really want him running the ship either.
I don't.
Do you know what I mean?
I don't. I really don't.
But having those conversations, like open and honest conversations, which is in every aspect, people talk about how important communication is, but sometimes we forget that communication is also important on the little things, and it might seem silly for him to have said, I hate doing laundry. And if you could do laundry every time, that'd be great. And for me to say, I never want to clean the bathrooms in my whole entire life.
Right.
And come to that place, of that communication, man, it helps. And he hates putting he's great with doing the dishes, but he doesn't like putting stuff away in to-go containers. Like, and we do a ton of cooking. So without even asking,
Yeah.
I always
Yeah.
do that. And then he does the dishes and those
Yeah.
practical things in the really intense times of super little kids and
Mhm.
such little time at home when you're working, that has just been our saving grace.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to throw a curveball at y'all. As we finish up, I had a different question planned, but I really think that, I don't know, the moms listening would really benefit from just like one piece of encouragement you could give them with the season that they're in right now. If anything comes to mind that you're just like, that would have just encouraged me, at least for that day, for that moment, like the hard postpartum or even pregnancy season, just one piece of encouragement you could give them. Do you want to go first, Bethany?
Sure. Just that it's going to be okay. You're not going to mess it up,
Yeah.
And I think that's the big fear in those moments is it's so much newness to learn. And it is like a job. Like you have training and onboarding for 6 months to a year. And I think approaching it like that allows you to have grace on yourself and know that it is going to be okay. Like the things are going to get done. You're going to come on the other side of it and thrive, and embracing that to the deepest part of your core will help you enjoy the moments that are enjoyable and have the freedom to allow yourself to become it's like crazy when someone hands you a baby that you just birthed and you're expected to go home with it and be like, the people say like, oh, they don't come with a manual, ha ha ha, but like they legit don't. And just also my second comment, which is a little different angle, is social media and guarding your soul and your heart and your mind from comparison, because it sounds simple and something that we all know, but I noticed my mom friend in that vulnerable time. If you're up late, maybe don't sit up and scroll, put your phone down, find things to fill your mind and your soul with that are life-giving, because you are in such a vulnerable time, far more vulnerable than you realize. I know for myself, I don't think I even could have known, or, in that moment, that when looking hindsight, like you're in this place of your heart is filleted open and you have needs you never had. And I don't do well being weak. In general, I like to feel strong. So, I like working out, and the weakness and embracing that. It's just important to guard your heart in that time and, fill your soul with life-giving things. So social media can feed this whole side of your heart that, again, I watch a lot of friends during that time, and I can almost tell that they're comparing themselves, and the what's it called? Snapback culture, where you're expected to have your body back instantly and your body to be functioning at the same level. And whether it is or it's not, you're expected to appear that it is, and I think other people are doing that. So that being one of the things, I would just encourage you to guard your soul in what's coming into it during that time, and truly tend to what the deepest part of you needs, which is peace, quiet, care, nurture, connection to the Lord, and connection to others, and just embracing the pace that those first fragile days and weeks bring.
So good. What about you, Jenn?
I would say a couple really practical things is, especially if you haven't had a baby yet, is it's so fun to plan the nursery and buy the clothes and do all of those things. And yet what I wished that I was more prepared for at the beginning was my own physical healing. I had a easier birth with my first, but it's still completely new. I had a horrible tear with my second, but I was more prepared. And so really being more prepared on the front end, ask other moms what their postpartum journey was like and have an idea of like what pads to get. The Freedom Mom, there's a new line called Freedom Mom that has these amazing, glorious things for when your nether regions are destroyed, and like actually actually be a little bit proactive about that going into it. And also potentially think about and talk to other parents. You won't know what fully works for you and your dynamic, but I wish I would have had more of a handle, even though on like sleep or baby's needs, or even a picture of understanding how much they change in that first year, and some sort of template or of baby sleep was something that I kind of wish that I would have understood a little bit more at the beginning. And so those are a little bit practical. It's like, buy the good pads, buy the witch hazel foam, and get the good underwear. Honestly, that's a part of self-care that people don't talk about a ton. And recoveries are so different. And also, if you're having some issues, ask your doctor about a pelvic floor therapist. I was prescribed that with my second because I had such a bad tear, and it was a game changer. And other countries, that's standard with care, but in America, it's not. But it's becoming more and more available. So don't think that your physical recovery, that you had a baby so that you just are stuck with peeing your pants and stuff. Like, I'm just getting real.
Yeah, no, totally.
Or that you're stuck with a lot of pain or things like that. Don't suffer in silence from that. And that, I guess, would be partnered with what my pediatrician said to me. Remember that this idea of parenting on our own, just with like a husband and wife, or a really small community, that is such a new concept, and we really weren't created for that. And so though we don't live in multi-generational communities where everybody's, in each other's life, in such a way that they were even 100 years ago, reach out to other people. No, you're not supposed to do it alone. Know that you don't have all the answers. And that's a part of the gift of community. And if that feels hard, also remember that Mary, the mother of Jesus, when she was pregnant, what is one of the things that she did? She went to go see her cousin Elizabeth to have support from another woman in the midst of that journey. And if the mother of Jesus needed that supportive community, then I think that we can give ourselves permission to need and receive and give that support, because not one of us has ever been intended to have all the answers for how to raise our child, especially because each child is different. And then I guess the last thing I would say is, we talk a lot about learning a child or getting to know a child, but also remember that you've never met yourself as a mom. So you need to give yourself permission to learn from the ground up who your husband is as a dad, who you are as a mom, while you learn who this child is as a child. Give yourself the same grace that you're giving to your kid, that you hopefully will learn to give your kid to learn who they are. Give that grace to yourself as a mom, and your husband as a dad, and the other people in your community as well. You are meeting yourself as a mom for the first time as you meet your child for the first time.
It's so good. Thank you, ladies, so much for coming on. It is such an honor to host you guys on So You're Having a Baby. And I can't think of two better ladies to just come share their heart, be real, be vulnerable about the ways that motherhood has really changed them and opened up their hearts and led them to a deeper place with the Lord. And if you're listening today, I hope this was encouraging to you. I hope that it made you feel less alone. I hope that it made you feel like you can really do this. So as we wrap up, I just want to continue to encourage you guys to check out our workbook, A Parent's Guide to a New Baby. You can go to christianparenting.org to find our book. We just hope that it's a blessing to you and it helps you and your spouse kind of walk through this preparation season really well and come together in a new way and to get ready to thrive with a newborn. We know that parenting a newborn is real hard, but we're here to help.